What seems complicated but is actually dead simple? Sir 978 said, using Google to answer simple questions. For example, I am not an IT professional but I am good at fixing computers because I can speak Google. 90% of the time when a friend or family member asks me for tech support, I just Google the question. Cinnamon Daffix said, I worked in an IT office for 8 months. The guys I worked with had years of professional training and fully admitted that they use Google for most of it. That pancreatitis guy said. But a big part of that 90% is knowing how to find that info, which an IT person can do because they have some idea of what the underlying problem is. Just like a lawyer may search Westlaw to find persuasive authority, which a layman in most instances wouldn't even know where to begin. Ditto doctors and symptoms. I'm sure you appreciate that, but I'm offering this as an apologia for underappreciated IT folks who are not simply using Google, but applying their experience and knowledge to diagnose an issue and find the solution. As someone who recently spent hours trying to connect my son's Switch to a PC in Minecraft, I appreciate that Google alone is not a good substitute for working knowledge. Applexel said, just in case anybody reads this comment and wishes they could also speak Google. How to this is the first part of your search. Type in the thing you're trying to do, i.e. stop Discord from launching during startup. Add any keywords that can help filter out non-applicable results, i.e. Windows 10 or Android. How to stop Discord from launching during startup Windows 10. Sometimes adding in the current year can be helpful, because there is a lot of old how-to guides that are outdated due to software changes. Also, adding Reddit to the search can be handy because people in Reddit aren't paid by the word, unlike some websites it seems like. This is not said. A major part of speaking Google that people often overlook is the importance of the words, and specifically the verbs, you use. In your example, you assume that launch is the first verb that would come to mind for a non-techie trying to figure out the problem, but I don't think that's true. Knowing the lingo for your problem goes a long way to finding a solution. As a techie myself, I can only imagine what a regular guy would think with this problem, but I could definitely see him struggling to put it into words. How to turn off Discord when computer starts or how to make Discord stop starting with computer both come to mind, and are both unlikely to produce the desired results. I really feel like vocabulary is the deciding factor that separates the good Googlers from the bad ones. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I'm Sean Evans now F8 said. I'm doing this with the gym. All the big guys scared the shit out of me so I'd go run, walk LOL, on the treadmills with the ladies. I'm a 6 feet 4 inches guy BTW LOL, and day by day I would jump on a random machine, Google how to use it and see what muscles it worked on the lightest weights. Then I'd go from machine to machine day to day doing this until I've done every machine. I then started doing my favorites, the ones where I had more muscle to lift larger weights and feel stronger. After 3 weeks of that 3x a week, I started writing down the names of the machines and then I broke it down into the ones where I pull, the ones where I push and the ones for my legs. Now I do a 3-day split of that and have been going for ages consistently. The key to feel like you're making progress is to write down the weight the first time you do it and increase it in small increments either once a week or every time you get on. Pretty much until you can do a full set of 8 reps. Now I take my motivation from seeing how much heavier lifts I can do. P.S. for any other fatties out there like me, if you feel intimidated start with leg exercises. You have a shit ton of muscle in your legs and it will give you the confidence to keep going. See just how much weight you can smash. Sturkey 2019 said, as someone going to the gym frequently and having tons of friends who do too, many of which you'd probably consider big buff guys, reading such things always saddens me. Because making noises, looking pissed, angry, aggressive etc. is just because those guys are just in their zone using the gym as a place where they can get their mind together, let stress out etc. And I guess that often intimates people new to gym which isn't their intention at all. So anyone who is afraid of going to gym due to their appearance, believe me everyone is just minding their own business. Agad yeah said. You certainly could, but the semicolon opens up stylistic options and can sometimes make things easier to read. For example, what if we followed up with a sentence that began with but then, ? By using the semicolon version, we avoid having 2 buts in a row, which makes the 3 clauses together less awkward than the but version. The boy needed to get a drink, The teacher wouldn't let him get one. But then, a pitcher of Flavor Aid burst through the wall and poured the boy a glass. Versus. The boy needed to get a drink, but the teacher wouldn't get him one. But then, a pitcher of Flavor Aid burst through the wall and poured the boy a glass. Also, let's not forget that you get to feel fancy. FigFunler15 said. My roommate once said reheating his food in the oven because her microwave was broken took too much work. I wrapped his shit in tin foil and took it out in 10 minutes and the guy thought I was Gordon Ramsay. Heat plus food equals hot food, idiot. CSCF0360 said. I got a toaster oven 6 years ago because I like my food hot and crispy, not intermittently molten and cold and somewhat crispy and soggy. I basically stopped using my microwave and when it was damaged in a move, never replaced it. I just replaced the cheapo $50 toaster oven I got 6 years ago with a $250 that has a truly absurd number of features. I still haven't felt the need to replace the microwave, but goddamn do I love the toaster oven. I can bake a 13 inches pizza in that fucker. I've done cinnamon rolls, brownies, cookies, biscuits, finished off pan-seared steaks, a pork tenderloin, barbecue chicken, fries, sweet potatoes, and I've only hit it for a couple months. My regular oven is just storage for pans at this point. Smithithy said. One step further, cleaning up after someone else. I used the toilet in a coffee shop recently to take a very adult shit, laid some very heavy skid marks. Guy from a nearby table uses it after me. When he leaves, I go back in to wash my hands. All of the streaks, totally off. That guy pissed them off the porcelain. Says a lot about a man. Dude is a poop chipper. There are two types of guys in this world, right? Those who use their own urine to chip away someone else's poop, for the greater good, and those who do not. 89 Hopper said. Not trying to insult you, heck, you know at least 2 more languages than me, not including my barely passable French. I try hard enough and speak enough that most people in France take pity and help me in English. It is the trying to speak their language that helps the most though. In English it is third, not third. I don't know why we do this, but if it ends in 1 it is X first, i.e. first, 21st, 31st, if 2 it is X second, i.e. second, 22nd, 32nd, if 3 it is X third, i.e. third, 23rd, 33rd. Unless of course we are talking about 11th, 12th or 13th. Really, it is a weird system. And Steve 1 said. I rebooted the system. The PC is showing a 180 uptime. How do you shut off? Either two things happen: 60% of the time they turn off the monitor and back on, or they have fast boot enabled because some jack off at Microsoft thinks that is a good feature to be default in the age of SSDs. Pro tip for techs: don't be an asshole until you check that fast boot is turned off. I had a user get ridiculed by a guy who was saying they were lying. That tech is long gone. Turns out the user was doing shutdown at the end of the day, they hitting the power button in the morning to turn it on. Fast boot treats shutdown as a hibernation mode and won't reset the uptime. Technical Drift said. In areas where you've got stop and go traffic, lots of lights, etc. manuals are miserable. But the other thing is price and how common they are. Lots of sedans and subs offer the option at a cheaper rate if you order brand new. But automatics are more desirable in the States, so you'd be hard-pressed to find a used manual average car. However, you can find one if you start looking into their more sporty packages, which incidentally end up costing more than a baseline W automatic transmission. So in the end, if you're buying anything from the last decade, you're actually paying more for a car with manual transmission than an automatic. Doesn't apply to every situation, but definitely a noticeable trend. 007 James Bond 007 said. Sometimes it may not be that easy for some people. Now I'm not excusing people hurting others by lashing out in anger. There is no excuse for that, but for some people it can be more complicated than just taking a second to decompress. I for one have ADHD and struggle with emotional regulation, meaning a lot of the emotions I feel on a day-to-day basis are exacerbated and incredibly hard to control, regardless of context or if they are rational feelings or not. I don't lash out at other people when I can't control my strong emotions, but it can take me a while to get to a stable place emotionally. All I'm trying to say is there's more nuance to things like emotions than a lot of people realize. Blablaplapoo said. Yep. I gained some weight in high school to the point of being borderline overweight. It's not like anything happened, just little bits of stress eating here and there plus quitting a few sports added up. I blamed it on my meds for years since weight gain was a notorious side effect. Finally began counting my calories one summer and realized just how much sauces, snacks, desserts, an extra side, a slightly bigger portion, etc. added up. I was blown away because I had no clue how much I was technically overeating. So many of my calories were unnecessary and unfulfilling. Began staying under a deficit while also working an active job. Boom. Lost 20 pounds in a summer. It was that simple. I had tried so many times before to lose weight, but was too young to understand that it literally is a numbers game. Metabolism, muscle mass, etc. can all tweak the numbers slightly, but this is actually what it really comes down to. Finding ways to feel full and having the discipline to stay under, that's the hard part. Handy Drunkard said. I have a relative that can mess up the most basic recipe, so I watched her once making a basic casserole. She used the measuring cups and spoons, but her measurements were all over the map. Some heaping, some partly full. She substituted things that didn't make sense. Recipe called for garlic. She used celery since she said garlic was too hard to peel. Found out after she measured the ground beef from a kitchen scale after cooking, even though it clearly said 1 lb uncooked. She started with 1 pound uncooked but then went back and cooked more to get 1 pound cooked. I didn't eat it. Svensson 26 said. Exactly. I don't have jacks. And even if I did, is it really safe for me to be doing by myself in my garage? And if it was, I don't want to get dirty. And if I did, I don't have anywhere to store or dispose of the oil. I don't want to save it up in tin cans and drive them to somewhere that can dispose of them properly. I would so much rather take it to my regular place and pay the $35 or whatever it takes, and they also fill up the air in my tires and my washer fluid, and they tell me if there's anything else apparent that I might need to get looked at. And it takes 10 minutes. Hi peeps, it's me said. Let me summarize this really easy. If a tile with a 1 has one neighbor, you know that the neighbor is a mine. Same if tile 2 has 2 neighbors, both are mines. If you have a 1 that's bordering a mine and other neighbors, you know that all of the other neighbors aren't mines, because it already borders a mine. Repeat this and you win a lot. Nakadama said. To be fair, it can be complicated if you have multiple investments, deductions, and revenue streams. But for most people in the US, it isn't difficult. Even when there are complexities, the main incentives to outsource it to an accountant are to save time and make use of someone else's expertise. Anyone with a little patience and an Excel spreadsheet can figure out Joe Jane average taxes. Medusa Marie 83 said. If you charge more than average people can afford for rent, and you don't raise wages, either people become homeless and are less likely to work, or work and don't pay rent. No amount of virtue signaling or condemnation will change the fact that many people are getting priced out of places, most areas of the country, they cannot realistically leave. If they do leave, again, nobody will show up or move into work 12.00 per hour when rent on a previously low-income property is set for an upper-middle-class salary, increasing adhered occupancy limits, ample restrictions, and ideal tenant requirements in COVID economy. Only works if people are allowed to sardine, which isn't allowed usually. Can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. This shouldn't be so hard to grasp. Every average before COVID city trying to market itself as if it's the next New York or LA based on investors willing to store money in their market will eventually, given time, guarantee no New York or LA. Equilibrium, it's important. Your neighbor and the downtrodden are not your enemy. They are the product of, as politely as I can put it, an imbalanced system of get yours without thought to jow that plays out long term. So with that I give the idiom, you can't have your cake and eat it to want people to pay astronomical rent. Fight for astronomical wage increases. Want more workers to come back for 12.00 an hour? Fight for universal health care and to reduce rent, restrict the market. Can't sustain both as it's going. It's lunacy. Most people aren't doing very well at all financially, even if they did what society states is correct. You want motivated participants in society? Allow a factually motivational society worth participating in. Rando said. Really? I mean, I do it without thinking most of the time, But then I've probably driven about 200,000 miles in my lifetime. And I would still only claim to be average. Think back to when you learned. Sure, you were a young cocky kid and everything was easy. Me too. But how good a driver were you in those first few thousand miles? How much better were you once you had 30,000 miles under your belt? 100,000 miles? Driving seems easy when you've done a lot of it. It really isn't, not if you're doing it right. Thugarth said, I'm late to the party for this thread but I'll post anyway. Just fucking talking to people. Not even talking. I get so nervous even writing messages to people at work, through our communicator software, that we all use, all the time, because we've all been working remotely for damn near 2 years. I get anxiety about it. I write and rewrite the wording. I worry about looking like an idiot. Or I procrastinate actually sending it. And then I actually send it, and guess what? It's not a big deal. People answer. I get what I need, they get what they need, and everything moves forward. And my anxiety doesn't fucking matter. I really wish I could internalize that more. And honestly, as much as I abhor commuting to work, I remember what it was like to be able to match a name to a face and feel way more comfortable reaching out to people who I've had in-person conversations with. This whole WFH remote work quarantine thing has been both a blessing and a curse for my social anxiety. Chris Maskery said, Wisdom. A lot of people think life is about having experience. A lot of people think life is about having the right understanding. They spend life chasing after one or the other and suffering along the way. But it's really just having a little bit both. If you have enough experience to not bungle things up irreversibly, and enough understanding to be able to probe a problem and get feedback, you'll do fine. But when we only go after one or the other, we become arrogant fools or smart fools, accordingly. The Reed Wolf said, a lot of car repairs. With just a little basic instruction or a YouTube video, most people can change their own spark plugs, replace a headlamp assembly, oil changes, recharging an AC, etc. This week I had to remove a fender off one of my cars. Had not a single clue how to do it. YouTubed it. Got it done in a couple hours even while dealing with some minor setbacks. It only required a flathead screwdriver, a T25 wrench, 12mm socket wrench extension, a jack and a tire iron. Other than the T25, I'd wager most people have the rest in a basic toolkit. The T25 can be bought at Walmart for a few bucks. Obviously take a car in for major repairs, but you'd be surprised what a moderately handy person can accomplish. Foreman98 said, during the height of quarantine last year, I worked out daily with someone. We would follow a trainer on YouTube and work out for an hour every single day. Most of it was cardio related, but about 25% was body weight strength and conditioning. When I say we did this every day, it was 6 days a week for 6 entire weeks. It was COVID quarantine, so we were making our own meals, which were healthy enough, nothing crazy, but not fried or sugary items. Towards the end of that 6 weeks, we had to start going back to work and the workout slowed down. I was able to see my abs, felt really lean, and maybe lost about 5 pounds, but I also didn't have much weight to lose in the first place. My partner, on the other hand, has been told by doctors for a few years to lose some weight, so there is weight to actually lose. During those 6 weeks she lost 3 pounds. It was disheartening because she had been giving it her all, working out harder than me most days, and only lost 3 pounds. She was eating 3 meals a day, the same as me, no outrageous portions, but still only lost 3 pounds. We found out months later that she actually has a condition which defines her as pre-diabetic. Essentially, her body has trouble with glucose, and long story short, it's very hard to shed weight. She already steered clear of sugary things, but it didn't matter. A very specific diet is needed to lose weight and not make her condition worse, meaning becoming a diabetic. So that's my story about how I learned how difficult it can be to actually lose weight. Sure, just stop eating so much, but she would run the risk of being undernourished and could potentially worsen her condition. She hates that I can jog for a week and lose my winter weight. Objective Bike 8 said, speaking from my experience after losing about 20 pounds as an American, the hardest part is relearning social norms in diet, which in my opinion is why it feels so impossible to people, because it's hard to unlearn eating habits that are considered normal and healthy in a culture Like just because you go to Starbucks that doesn't mean you can get a fun 500-calorie drink which is 1/4 of your total calorie intake for the day and pretend you just did coffee. The problem is most people see Starbucks as a better brand for your health and as coffee instead of it being the same as downing a medium McDonald's chocolate shake which is culturally seen as a special occasion. Facine said, I hear you on the coffee thing. Years ago I used to take my coffee with 2 cream and 2 sugar, and one day it occurred to me I was basically drinking a chocolate bar's worth of calories. I switched to black. That was the only dietary change I made, and I actually prefer good black coffee to bad coffee with cream and sugar, and I noticeably lost some weight over the course of several months. Joan Wizard said, what I'm saying is it made me realize things that are seen as healthy or okay are actually really bad for you like juice and Starbucks. Even things like vegetarian subs that I used to get I realized were just loaded with lots of high-calorie sauces. I don't think anyone thinks juice, Starbucks, large sandwiches, or high-calorie sauces are inherently healthy. It's pretty well known that sugar, fat, and high-calorie foods and drinks are linked to weight gain. Max was taken said, counting I'll be real here, I legit can't count. My drama queen of a brain legit can't count. I have an attention deficit which will make me forget the numbers while counting so basically I stop at like, IDK 39 and forget what's next. When it's time to count, if it's more than 50 it's miscounted. It's legit wrong. It's so rare for me to get the numbers right. Alone Monk said, most of you all probably already know this but stuff like quantum physics, nanotech, and all those other CNC topics movies like to make out as super complex are actually very easy to gain a conceptual understanding of. For example, quantum physics is just the study of tiny particles and how they behave, and nanotech is just tech but really small. The subjects do become a lot more complicated as you dive deeper, but you don't need to be a science whiz to understand what they are about. Tenephorus said, learning correctly. I have a friend that's had a burnout because she didn't learn correctly her homework and all. She was stressed about it and BC of a lot of other things. But I recently sent her a message to tell her that learning her school lessons by reading over and over, or just working without any pause is not a good way to do her works. She was thankful and I hope she do well. Idiot Soup 101 said, chemistry. Honest to God that shit is almost like playing with Legos. When I'm in class learning about organic chemistry and whatnot and people get confused about the structure of a molecule or the way that 2 molecules react, I just sit there dumbfounded because the rules of how organic atoms molecules react are dead simple. Sometimes when I'm bored enough, my nerdy ass will start drawing out molecules and their structures for fun. I genuinely don't understand why people find it complicated. Idbam said, religion and faith. It's all in front of you. If this crazy universe can exist, then we can exist again and will continue to exist after we leave here. You will never know all the answers, but you know how to be a human animal. What makes a human animal successful? Learning, teaching and working together. If you do those things, then there is a good chance you are a good human. There is a lot more and a lot less, and it's all wrong and right and nothing's matters but also does at the same time. But that's all for another lesson, my friends. Love you guys, and I hate you all.